Hey everyone, good afternoon. Let me, it's gonna be a quick light, or it's gonna be a live feed, so bear with me as we let a few people get in. Let me bring this up on my laptop. I was in a live feed earlier today from SoCal, and a good live feed was talking about those that mentor others in the trucking industry and that sort of thing. So if you might check that video out. There was pretty good information in that. But once the video got the live feed got going, there was an individual in there that commented, "Dixville, how are you?" Once the conversation got going, the live feed got going, there was an individual. I can't recall his last name. Screen name was Mark, and he had mentioned that he was an owner-op. He had mentioned he had been an owner-op for about 8 months. Now, I don't know how long he's been driving. I was kind of in and out of the feed. But the topic, a lot of people were discussing the fact that there was, sorry, I got some messages coming in here, sorry about that. The topic was talking about new drivers, and they're being taken advantage by some of the larger lease op carriers and things of that nature, right? So this gentleman mentioned that he had a situation that occurred where he had to rebuild the engine. You know, it's funny, and I can't even argue this, guys. Gracie has had this bone that you can hear her chewing on. Hear that noise? She's had this bone for about 5 days. She hasn't so much as touched it. But as soon as we start a live feed, she's like going to town on this thing. And I'm not even gonna like knock her on it. We're gonna have to, Grace, we're gonna have to put Grace down here in a week or two. So I'm just gonna, if you guys don't mind, bear with it. We're gonna let her enjoy the bone, even though it's loud and crunchy. All right, so back to the topic of this. We had a situation, this gentleman had a situation, he had to rebuild his engine, and he said, look, I'm gonna go out of business. I can't handle this, the situation, it's killing me. And I understand that when you go through a rebuild, that comes at a really significant cost. And the guy was like asking for help, right? He was like, hey, can somebody just help me? And I just asked a couple of questions, and I said, man, where are you based out of, right? And so if you follow this channel at all, one of the things I discuss about becoming a lease op or an owner op, there are a couple of things that I think people don't consider that is going to have a significant, a drastic impact on your ability to be successful right out of the gate. And one of those things is where you live. How far you live from good paying freight has a really significant factor on your ability to be successful and make money. Anybody want to take a guess where this gentleman lived? All right. Where it is known for horrible rates year round. Florida, right? Florida. So the gentleman lives in Florida. Probably one of the worst spots if you're going to try to make a living as a lease op or an owner op, especially unless you buy the right truck and the right type of trailer to be able to haul short runs and make it successfully in Florida. So the next question logically that comes to my mind is, okay, you live in Florida, one strike against you. So the next question is, how often are you allowing Florida, where you reside, to have an impact to your business, right? You've already made the decision, one strike against you. So the next worst thing that you can do is be going in and out of Florida often, right? I mean, that's the worst thing you could do, because you're going to get either a crummy rate going in, maybe get slightly above average rate going in, but you know you're going to get killed going out. So I hate to say this, but you probably don't want to be spending a lot of home time, right? If that's where you're based, unless you have secured some sort of a direct contract or something to that effect that's going to allow you to get out of there at a reasonable rate. If you have that, then sure, right? The gentleman comes back and says, I assume it's the gentleman, Mark comes back and says, I'm home every 2 to 3 weeks. Strike two, right? Now I say strike two, look, everybody wants to be home as often as possible. We all understand that, right? But the fact of the matter is, when you choose to make that business decision of becoming an owner-op, you've got to treat this business like a business, right? You literally have to understand all the implications that you're going to be facing. I mean, you probably don't want, I don't know, maybe here's a good example. You probably don't want to own some kind of a company in Arizona that requires a lot of usage of water, right? Water's incredibly expensive, that type of stuff. This guy made two really poor decisions, as it turns out. Now, I don't know the gentleman's story of how successful he was. So he ultimately says, look, I had to do a rebuild. And so it's killing me. I'm going out of business. Anybody can help me. So, it would be great to have a conversation with this individual to really understand all the facets at play for his business. But I thought and I even mentioned, I said, hey, I'm going to try to do a live feed later this afternoon and maybe touch on this. And I don't recall seeing Mark in my videos, so I'm not sure if he's aware of the channel or not, but I thought it would be a good learning opportunity, or at least a conversation opportunity for those that do follow the channel to understand, guys, if you're going to be a lease op or an owner op, where you choose to reside at, where home is at, has a really big impact on you financially. And secondly, the amount of home time, the amount of times you're going to have to come into Florida or some other poorly performing area, month in, month out, is going to have a really big impact. So now that we know that, let's talk about the rebuild. I've mentioned it a lot, and man, Logic, I think that's what your comment said. That's exactly what I was about to touch on. Underfunded is such a critical component to this. Anytime you want to start a new business, I don't care what the business is, you need to have proper funding, right? You need to expect that bad things are going to happen, because there are always things that we know that we don't know. And I always use, Little Guy Trucker as this example, because it was visible. Gets a brand new truck, and within just a couple of months, it's in and out of the shop 3 or 4 times, or something like that, and he ends up losing it, right? Costing him the business. You have to go into this, well-funded, especially when you know that you're in an area that has poor freight rates. Coupling that with the fact of maybe your family situation requires you to be home 2 or 3 weeks at a time. So what can this individual do now, right? So he's had to go through this very significant issue that's cost him a lot of money, and he's losing it. So, I assume, or I hope, that he has the money to get the truck out of the shop. But my response to him is, you have to be you are in control of your business. So when you're in control of it, you have to do some things that maybe you don't want to do. But unfortunately, those that own businesses are constantly in that state of mind. So what I suggested is, look, get out of Florida and stay out. Find the lanes that pay well. And if that means that you have to stay out 4, 5, or 6 weeks at a time, 2 months at a time, that's what you have to do, right? I mean, I guess the other option is you just lose everything that you have into the truck. But that doesn't sound like really the best option, right? So nobody wants to be gone for a month or 2 months at a time. But when the result is you have to work harder to sustain the business, then that's what you have to do. I mean, so it's frustrating to hear guys, say, man, I don't know what to do. You got to work harder. And I'm not trying to be disrespectful to Mark. I'm just trying to say there are a lot of things that you do. And I mentioned about some of the rates on the spot market, and he says that he commented that he runs the spot market as well. Get the hell out of Florida. Get into some really good lanes and stay in those lanes as long as you can, and know full well that when you're coming out of Florida, while you're at home or while you're out of Florida, start making phone calls, trying to work with brokers or work with direct shippers to get a better rate. Even 50 cents a mile getting out of Florida could be a good thing. I don't know what the freight is like right now in Florida. We haven't sent anybody down there. I haven't booked anybody down there, so I don't know what those rates are like. I'm sure I'm sure that they are better than they have been. But just don't put yourself in that situation, and know full well that you've got to be well funded. This is, I think, where SoCal and I differ, in that, SoCal's like, man, you can absolutely, go into business with $5K, and you can. I just tend to feel like you've got to be prepared for the worst to happen. And I just think, somewhere in that 15 to 20 grand is really where you need to be. You need to be able to sustain, probably 3 or 4 weeks worth of breakdown, the costs associated with that, as well paying the payments and taking care of things at home, right? And probably a good rule of thumb is somewhere in that 15 to 20 grand range. Yeah, Neo, man, I've just seen so many circumstances. I've talked to so many individuals that went into it underfunded. I just think it's really dangerous. Not that you can't be successful, right? But that's where the component of luck, it comes into play. I mean, I can't tell you the number of times that, I've been in a $5,100 game, $5,100 game at poker, and I have the nuts on the turn, and I'm in great position, and there might be 2 or 3 other people betting into me, right? And life is great, and then all of a sudden I can't control luck. I can't control the turn of the cards, right? And the river comes and it completely changes the dynamics of the hand. I went from winning to losing. And there are things that we can't control. And in trucking, there are many things that we can't control. We can't control when mechanical things break down. We can't control time spent at shippers or receivers. What we can control is having contract notes stating what our detention rates are and things of that nature. So with the number of people that are looking and making that transition to lease op and owner op over the past 6 months, and I think probably over the next year or so, I think it's going to be on the increase. I think it makes sense that it's on the increase for the simple reason that rates are strong right now. And so a lot of guys feel like now is a good opportunity to make that jump. I don't disagree with that. And for those, I guess I just want to throw out a comment of caution for those that say, man, I've only got, $2,500 or $5,000 that I can put into this business, but rates are so good and I'm going to run so hard out of the gate that I'm going to stockpile some cash. Good idea. You're just at luck, right, relative to your breakdowns and things of that nature. So, bad situation, and I hope that Mark finds the way out. I hope that he can just say, if he's married or has wife or kids, just say, hey, honey, I love you, but I've got to go. I got to go get in some good rates and some good lanes, and I'll see you in 2 months. With rates where we're at this time of year, they're probably at the peak, being July, and quickly into August, rates start to dip typically around the middle to back end of August. So he's got a solid month or 6 weeks where he can probably go make some really good money. But that's what it takes to do. That's what you have to do, right? It just does. That does kind of open the door to a whole nother conversation that probably is worth a whole nother topic or a whole nother video, which is choosing the right type of equipment for you to get in that business. Is that a used truck? Is that a new truck? What type of trailer, freight are you going to haul? Things of that nature. So, man, I can't encourage guys enough to do and chase, to do what they want to do, to chase their passion, to try to improve their financial situation. In the same vein, make sure that you're really assessing your capabilities and all the variables that are going to impact your business. So that's kind of my 2 cents for today, for that gentleman. And for all those that are moving into the lease op space, make sure that you are properly funded. Hey, Jim, congratulations, man. I saw that the other day. I saw your comment. Josh says, lives in Green Bay, not far from Oshkosh. Very good. And says, Josh says he's got good freight coming in and going out of Wisconsin. Wisconsin is typically one of those places that, there are certain areas, pockets within Wisconsin. Same thing for Minnesota to a degree. There are pockets where they tend to have decent freight, and there's good rates going in, good rates going out. What is it, onions, or what is it going into there that's so good? But there's some good pockets for sure. Frank Road Pro says most mega carriers don't hire south of I-4 or I-10. That should raise a question if you're a Florida resident thinking of leasing or on a ROP. Florida's just tough. I mean, look, we try not to hire out of there, it's tough. We've had a driver that lived in around Tampa, and thankfully we worked out some things for that individual getting home. But man, if we had to send that guy home all the time, it would. There's no way we could be profitable. Rates are just, even now today with rates being as good as they are, while they may be better than they have been in the past, they're still not great. Hey, Food Moochers, going out of business. Gentleman over on SoCal's channel, I was watching his live feed earlier. He's new to the owner op thing, been in it about 8 months, and probably didn't stash as much cash as he should have for the maintenance fund. And he had to rebuild an engine, and so he's really struggling to make ends meet. And you know what? Look, let me say one more thing to this. And obviously, this is sort of a personal comment from my stance, but when you go into business, and as I mentioned earlier, when you face those potential, knowing there are going to be things that you know that you don't know, and bad things that can happen, when you do start making money, don't immediately start changing your lifestyle, right? Don't buy the new house, don't buy the new car. Stash that cash. Be really frugal. Be really tight. Because when you get into a really strong position from a cash standpoint, cash is king, and there's a reason that saying exists. So when you start making money, don't just immediately upgrade your lifestyle. Stay patient, let the business grow, have enough money that you can fund the business properly, take some other risks inherent within the business. Don't just go and blow it. Again, personal opinion coming from somebody that has made a lot of money, lost a lot of money, and made a lot of money. When you lose it, it just makes you want to throw up, right? So be frugal. Stuart says he's moved out of Florida just to help his business. It doesn't surprise me at all, Stuart. I mean, I just don't know how guys would make it there. I don't. Again, unless you bought an old truck and you were very mechanically inclined and you could do some of those things yourself, it'd be tough. I'm going to Tennessee. Yeah, there's some good stuff out of there, you bet. Greg Inman, hey, welcome. You know, Greg's a perfect example, guys, owner op, and last year he had a similar situation where he had a lot of significant expenses. In this particular case, I believe, Greg, correct me if I'm wrong, you knew that you were going to be spending some money. It wasn't like a last second thing. But Greg spent, I forgot the number of days, but it was well north of 300 days out on the road because he knew that he was going to have a lot of really significant expenses. So he bit the bullet and he did what he needed to do to make the cash. And that's just a good example, right? A perfect example of how you can control that business. When you let the business control you, that's when you have to make a lot of decisions that you end up not wanting to make. You do deals with devils, you do deals with factoring companies, you have to do business with banks or things of that nature that you might not want to do, right? Be it lease rates, whatever it could be. You put yourself into a really bad hole. If this guy has to lose this truck and he has to go and sign up for some new truck that's going to allow his business to be more productive, but he gets some ridiculous interest rate, and that's the only option he has, he's just digging himself a deeper hole. Don't put yourself in those situations. Trucker Brown had a vehicle that was a money pit. Yeah, I didn't know that, but look, we've seen several high profile, and by high profile I mean guys on YouTube that incur those types of things, and so it's pretty sketchy stuff. Yeah, Greg, and that's another good example. I mean, there's some of that information on the USDA website. If you guys that haul reefer, I mean, you can follow where the areas are hot. It'll tell you, month to month and week to week where areas are going to be shipping and what commodity or what freight they're going to be shipping. So really valuable resource. I assume that most people know about that, but maybe they don't. People lacking, Freakword Pro says, people lacking basic business 101, get into trucking. I think the trucking is a gold mine during the gold rush. Yeah. Trucking, I say it in every video, right? Trucking is really tough. And manage your debt, be funded, be willing to shut the left door and run hard. And you can be successful right now. How long is this gold rush going to last? We don't know. We know it's going to end. We just don't know when. So, if it were me, man, I would say, hey, honey, I love you, but I'm going to be out for another 2 or 3 weeks than I normally am. I'm going to reduce the amount of home time I take, the amount of deadhead that I'm incurring, and I'm going to make the money while I can. Things will turn, and when they turn, great. Then choose to spend that time at home. And again, that's really easy for me to say, and I sound like a hypocrite. It's just that's how you make money in this business, right? Like poker, playing smart poker. there's ways to make money, right? But you can't be foolish. Stack the deck in your favor, absolutely. Trigger's coach says 10 to 15K bare minimum, expendable cash, not counting personal money. Yeah, and that's the thing, right? Is when I say that, that 15 to 20 grand, there's a lot of factors, right? You've got to maintain the ability to pay for your assets, right? All your fixed costs. You have to be able to make those payments. You also have to be able to fix and pay for the repairs that are needed. You also have to make sure that you're covering things at home, right? So when you start to run those numbers, 15 to 20K, that'll get you through one or two big breakdowns. But again, more is always better. Trigger Rick says, when I win the Mega Millions, that's when you'll buy a truck. I don't know what I saw the other day, a week or two ago, it was like 260 million. It's drying up out of South Georgia. Yeah, I know it's been pretty solid a lot of different places. But again, it's very cyclical, so check the USDA website. Franco Pro says not only underfunded, but no ability to get a big line of credit. There can be some problems with that too, right? I mean, a lot of credits, especially business credit, but any kind of credit, it's a really funny thing. It's hard to get credit when you don't have credit and that whole argument. So again, stash your cash, live frugal. And once the business has been self-sustaining for a couple of years and things are doing well and you've stashed a lot of cash, then start looking at, upgrading some things or, taking a little nicer vacation, things of that nature. But let's see, high overhead will kill you. Yeah, absolutely, man. It sure will. Yeah, Greg, that's a good point, right? Relationships do help with luck. And that's what I was suggesting to the individual is, I posted a video here a while back. I think a lot of individuals took it way out of context. And I think the title or the message, the title of the video, I don't recall, but the message in the video was, why relationships don't matter. Relationships absolutely do matter, but you have to ensure that the relationships are beneficial to both parties. And when you're working with brokers that are asking you to take less money now for something down the road, this is not the time to be playing that game, because down the road, when rates turn, trust me, they're not going to be all that eager to pay you more money then, for certain. Right now, they are actually able to go in and get more money from customers and things of that nature. So I just see very little value in building a relationship unless it is mutually beneficial. And if it's not mutually beneficial, then just don't do it. Right? But I just don't like betting on the come. And if we're doing business and we're doing a transaction right now, I'll provide the service, you provide the payment, right? No freight going in. Yeah, I mean, Florida's just bad, aside from probably 6 weeks out of the year. Sugar Shine, welcome. Sugar Assassin, how are you, man? Big Radio Network, yeah, it's just some of those things that I think a lot of guys, they get excited about the business and things of that nature. I think they just fail to overlook or to consider some of the really small things, like where you live and that sort of stuff. So I just thought, again, especially with this individual being in Florida, I just thought it was a good opportunity to kind of reiterate that. Chuck Eric brings up a great point. He says even as a company driver, he's been staying out longer, keeping the left door closed. Yeah, I mean, it's just a good time now. It really is. Michael, hey, Exec, I have some in-depth questions for you. How can I contact you directly? Let's see, I have my email in here. What is it? thetruckingexec@gmail.com, I think. Hang on, let me pull it up. Is this sad that I can't remember my own email? Hang on. It's either truckingexec@gmail.com or thetruckingexec. Yeah, thetruckingexec. TJ, how are you, man? Jim says, selling the sailboat I've lived on for the past 10 years. All my stuff is in storage. I'll live out of the truck till retirement and call my 34 in a new and interesting city. Listen, we've had a few drivers that do that. Obviously, it's great to have as a carrier those individuals that want to stay out and run hard. A lot of value in those individuals for sure. Jose says you should not hire Ike anymore. Sugar Sign says lay off Ike, leave him alone. I think Ike is going to be chasing his dream and his passion. So wish him the best there. Mad Dog says I was thinking about getting my own truck, but I decided to wait. I wanted to have more cash to be stable. There's a lot to be said for that. I'll tell you guys. The first time I made a noticeable amount of money, I had never slept so good in my life, and probably had never slept so poorly when I lost it. And so, it's a situation where I think we've all been there at some point in time. And again, more cash is always better. And there's a balance, right? There's a balance of when you should take the risk. Rates are great. I think that's the pressure that a lot of individuals are feeling. Is, gosh, if I wait to get another $10,000 saved, that's going to take me another, 6 months. Did I just miss 6 months of opportunity? And again, that's a risk that every one of you guys that decide to make that transition, you have to weigh that and provide that risk assessment, right? So, that's up to each one, every one of you guys. Again, rates are really good. How long are they going to last? Who knows? So I think that's what puts a lot more pressure on individuals to make that transition possibly sooner than they should. And again, with rates being as strong as they are, as long as you don't have a big mechanical issue or a big, some bad thing happen, you probably have an opportunity to be successful right off the bat. Joe Harding is in the house. Welcome, Joe. So the stability that cash offers is second to none, right? I got some guys doing some landscaping in the backyard, and they gave me a bid on the deal, and we sort of played that game back and forth, and we got to the lowest number that we could, and then I said, hey, I'm just curious, how much more of a discount if I just paid cash, right? And there ended up being another 10% or so. Why pay 10% more when I can just pay cash for something, right? And there's just money saved in my pocket. It's coming out of my account anyways, whether I'm writing a check for it or putting up my credit card or paying cash. So it doesn't really matter to me. It matters to their business, I know. So I might as well offer that to pay it in cash. And so it's just a savings of 10% to me. So that's kind of it. So for you guys making that transition, like I said, be wary of it. Make sure that you're funded properly. Make sure you assess all the factors that are going to impact your business. So I'll let this go for 30 minutes. That'll be a short live feed based on the last several. So any questions, we can kind of dance on those really quick. Otherwise, we'll just kind of kill it. Let's see. Well, let's see. Did I miss a question here? I think I did. No, we're good. Hey, let's kill it. Let's kill it now. Let's see. Trucking Exec. Trucking is like the stock market. Goes up, comes down. Let's see. That's for sure, man. The other piece of this pie is, right, fuel. Fuel is a really significant cost, right? Where you live, a lot of different areas have much higher fuel prices, right? Just a lot of different factors that you want to consider. So, and MPGs matter. MPGs matter. If anybody knows anyone that maybe says that MPGs don't matter, every time I'm on the phone with those individuals and they utter that phrase, I always yell at them. Feel free to go to their channel. I don't know of anybody that jumps to mind. Little Dog. Go tell them that MPGs matter. I always give them a hard time about that. For sure. All right, guys. Hey, as always, man, if you guys are making miles, stay safe. I hope everybody had a great 4th, and we'll talk to you guys soon. Take care.